Bonjour tout le monde, I'm Diane, and this is We in France, where we talk about everyday French life and beyond. And today, we're going to get right into a cultural comparison between the USA and France. And at first glance, French and American cultures don't seem that different. But the longer you live in France, surrounded by the French way of doing things, you'll begin to notice all the differences between the French and American ways of life that maybe didn't seem so apparent in the beginning. So in this video, let's get right into a look at very normal French things that would never work in the USA. First, a quick disclaimer, as I always point out, this isn't a judgment on what's better or worse in the USA or France. You could decide that for yourself depending on your personal preferences. There are pros and cons to both countries and different ways of doing things, and that's cool. Let's discover them, let's educate ourselves, and get right into it. And also, my point of view is from that of an American in France, so while these things aren't specifically French, they're new to me, and they can also be found in other European countries. But they are things that are common in France, so we're going to stick with that and get right into a closer look with number one. So number one is realtors scheduling a house showing when the owners are home. And yes, in France, this is very common. Whereas usually in the US, when someone's selling their home and a realtor has a potential buyer, the owners are asked to leave or the appointment is scheduled when the owners are at work. So the showing is taking place on purpose and purposely scheduled when the homeowner isn't home in the US. And that way, the buyer and the realtor, they can discuss everything freely without having to worry about the owner or what they might overhear. But not so in France. And I could say from personal experience, when we were house hunting, if the owner just happened to be home at the time of the showing on a leisurely Saturday, they stayed put and sometimes even walked through the house with us. And of course, I kept all my comments positive for this reason. And a major advantage, I feel, to having the homeowner there was that they could answer specific questions that maybe the realtor might not know the answers to. But yeah, you do have to kind of watch what you say because you wouldn't want to inadvertently offend anyone. Okay, number two, taking the entire month of August off of work for vacation. Now, taking a month off of work for vacation in the USA probably wouldn't be possible or advisable in most jobs, especially if you're a new employee and you might even get written up. So long vacations aren't commonplace in the majority of US workplaces, and some jobs don't even give 4 weeks of vacation off for the entire year. And did you know that the US federal law does not require employers to give their employees any time off at all? That said, many jobs offer great benefits packages to attract top candidates and prevent burnout. But most jobs would draw the line at 2 weeks of vacation at a time, and even then, some companies might only allow 1 week of vacation at a time, commonly taken around the holidays or maybe in the summer, unless there are extenuating circumstances. And a personal note, back in the day when I worked a corporate job in New York City, I booked a trip to go to New Zealand, and I needed 2 weeks off, and that required special approval, despite me having the time available in my PTO bank to use. Now, to contrast that, in France, all full-time employees get 5 paid weeks of vacation per year. And it's super common in France for employees to just peace out for 3 weeks or even the entire month of August for some much-needed vacay. It's totally normal. And there's even a word for vacationers in France who take time off in July or in August. The word for July is juilletiste if you take your summer vacation off in July, and you're an Haussien if you take your vacation in August. And that just goes to show you how culturally significant it is in France to take vacation because there are special words for it. All right, number three, no school on Wednesdays. Now, in the USA, most public schools are in session Monday through Friday. And in France, that's not always the case nationwide and for certain age groups. They'll have the whole day off on Wednesdays. Yay! Now, my French husband, Tom, he even went to school on Saturday mornings to make up for that Wednesdays off when he was young. And that was more common 10, 20 years ago. But still today, for certain age groups, kids have Wednesdays off. And this dates way back to the 19th century when students were expected to study catechism once a week. But even today, it's still quite normal for me to be out at the park walking my dog Dagny and just seeing young kids walking around the playground at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday or 2 p.m. because schools are closed in my area for young kids. Now, while daycare, school programs, and babysitters are always an option, I feel like having your kids home on Wednesdays would not work the same way in the USA for a lot of families where maybe both parents work, maybe a babysitter's out of the budget, as well as daycare. So yeah, things are done a little differently in France. Okay, so speaking of school, today's video is sponsored by Lingoda. They're the #1 trusted online language school, and I'm so pumped to invite you to sign up for the Lingoda Language Sprint. It's an intensive language course where if you attend all of your classes over that 3-month time frame kicking off August the 2nd, you will get up to 100% cash back. So if you want to brush up on your French before heading to France, now that the borders are starting to open up, and make real progress in a short amount of time, the Lingoda Language Sprint is exactly what you need to feel confident interacting with the French on their turf. If you're serious about language learning and about saving money, joining the Lingoda Language Sprint is a must. So if you've kind of been on the fence about leveling up your French, let this be the sign you need to take action. On a personal note, I first heard of Lingoda back in 2017, and both Tom and I have taken classes with them on their easy-to-use platform. And I love that you can take the live classes from the comfort of your home computer. You sign up in just a few clicks, and there are a ton of classes to choose from at all levels, all around the clock, no matter your time zone, with native speaking teachers. And another plus is that there's only a handful of students. So here's some shots of my dad signing up for his A1 beginner class and having a look around the platform. The curriculum is interactive, so you're not being taught but you're an active participant in the class with others. And in addition to French, if you're interested in German, Spanish, English, or business English, you'll have a curriculum for those languages as well. And you'll get real results no matter your current level. Now, for me, the classes I've taken have focused on grammar because that's a weak spot of mine in French, but no matter what your focus is, reading, comprehension, there's a class that's going to be interesting and that's going to get you closer to where you want to go in a fun and encouraging environment, because that's important. So if you like a deal and you can't resist, this is a huge one, especially if you don't really have a budget to level up your French. I feel you. And if you're dedicated, the Language Super Sprint will give you 100% cash back, yeah, I'm serious, when you attend all of your classes. So that is 30 classes a month for 3 months. And if that's too rigorous, bump it down to attend just the regular Sprint for 15 classes a month for 3 months, and you'll still get 50% cash back. All options require a €49 deposit, and the Sprint is definitely a challenge. So be sure to read through the terms and conditions before you sign up. But if you're ready to commit and transform your French language skills in just 3 months, you'll want to sign up with my link below and the voucher code FAST33. And that provides a €20 or $25 discount on that deposit. So if you're aiming high, sign up for the Super Sprint with that 100% cash back before June 24th, or get in by July 16th for the general sign up. And again, don't forget to check out their FAQ page for all your questions before signing up for all the details. Thank you to Lingoda, and let's get back to the video. Okay, so #4, les volets, or French window shutters. And I've spoken a bunch about French shutters over the years on my blog and here on YouTube. And basically, if you're not familiar with them, all French houses and apartment windows have these window shutters called the volets. And they're opened each morning, they're closed each evening, and they can be pretty and decorative, or they can just be metal accordion style like that. Some are automatic with a touch of a button, and others are manual, where you have to physically open your window and kind of push back the shutters. But they all do the same thing. They're cultural, and they are a must for all homes and apartments in France. And they use them in France for privacy, for security, and for climate control. Whereas in the US, I find that window shutters are mostly decorative, and we rely on blinds and curtains for privacy in many areas, and triple pane glass and air conditioning for climate control. It's just cultural. So yeah, Alaska, hurricane areas, they do use shutters like the ones we see in France, but they're certainly not mainstream, and I don't think Americans will be jumping on the volet bandwagon anytime soon, but I'll never say never, who knows. Okay, #5, strikes. So I thought striking was just a French stereotype until I actually worked in a few French schools back in the day, and I saw this striking culture firsthand. So from air traffic controls to teachers to tractor strikes, in France, these are all fairly common occurrences to have life disrupted for a little bit because of the strikes. And I feel like in the USA, of course people do strike, but it's not on the same scale. And if everyone went on strike, I think they're all more likely to get fired than to get what they want, since the majority of workers in the US don't have a work contract and employment is at will. Whereas in France, it's much more difficult to get fired, and jobs have work contracts, so you couldn't get fired for striking and replaced because you're being disruptive, Striking is definitely not seen the same way in the US as it is in France, and it's just part of French culture. Okay, #6, debit card only society. most French people do have a card, a carte bleue, a debit card, and we use it even for a small purchase. And it's, it has a chip just like the ones in the US, and you could pay for anything, tolls, restaurants, gas, whatever. In most cases, the money will come right out of your account, just like an American debit card, or it'll hit at the end of the month automatically, and the money will come right out of your account. But what the French don't have is a selection of credit cards where you have a line of credit that you aren't required to pay in full every month or accumulate interest. And American-style credit cards are very commonly accumulate points for travel rewards or cash back or just other programs, which could be really great. So while the concept of credit in France is not completely foreign to the French, most banks don't offer a credit card option in the same way we use them in the US. It's not mainstream. And the great part about that is that the French tend to be less in debt than Americans, because if the money's not in their account, they generally won't make a big purchase, except there are store credits and things like that. But stick with me. And I feel that American society is very consumer driven, and there's a keeping up with the Joneses mentality that's a bit scaled back in France, right? And that can cause us to accrue debt on our credit card if we're not using them responsibly. Okay, next up, Speedo style bathing suits for men. So French public pools require men and boys of all ages to wear a tight Speedo type of bathing suit and not loose swim trunks or board short style swimsuits for hygiene reasons. So even outside of public pools, you'll see men of all ages and sizes wearing Speedos at the beach and, other types of water areas. And culturally, I feel like American men are more accustomed to wearing looser swimwear, unless you're a competitive swimmer. So we probably won't be adopting the French way when it comes to public pool attire anytime soon. Okay, last one, wine at business lunches. When French coworkers grab lunch, they don't hesitate when it comes to ordering wine. It's normal. So a pichet split amongst the table is more than fine, and no one even bats an eye over the leisurely hour lunch, maybe even longer. It's totally normal to have wine with your meal amongst coworkers during the workday, and it's not a faux pas in the least. And I'm not saying this would never happen in the US during the workday, but let's just say in France, it's a bit more commonplace to have a glass of wine midday when out to eat with colleagues. It's normal. Now, this doesn't mean you're getting drunk or even tipsy. It means you're French, you're enjoying your meal. All right, everyone, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Lingoda for sponsoring this video. And keep in mind that sponsors allow me to keep on making content that's free for you, the viewer. So I hope you enjoyed their segment and you'll check them out if you're interested in language learning. As always, hit that like button if you enjoy this type of content. Let me know what other normal French things probably would never fly in the USA. I'd love to hear about that down below in the comments. And I'll see you right back here on We in France soon. Salut!